it's a desperately sad time to see all the theatres shut, to see people like Cameron McIntosh coming out and talking almost despairingly about the state of the industry, and to have no real idea of when this hell might end for the theatre business. As someone yourself who's trodden many a board, how do you feel about this?
Well, good morning, Piers. I feel desperate, of course. But how long is a piece of string? The thing is, the theatre, you have to sit very close to each other in the audience. And I understand that government do not want us to do that yet. As long as there's social distancing of 1 metre or 2 metres, that ain't going to happen. And that's our big problem. So at the moment, we don't know how to solve it.
How bad is it? I mean, you must be speaking to people in the business. How bad are the economics of this the longer it goes on?
It's very bad. It's expensive to be dark. As a theatre shut costs a lot of money, as you know. And we always operate on very slim margins. So, you know, we have to work for 80%, 90% capacity to make money. And so my heart goes out to everybody, including me, because I'm waiting to do a play myself. And we just have to keep our fingers crossed. But I have to say, I'm just so glad I'm not a politician, because it's a lose-lose for them. I understand people want to feel safe when they go to the theatre. That's the primary and most important thing. So we've got to work on a way of either testing people before they go in or changing the air. I don't know. I know Andrew Lloyd Webber's working on that. But eventually they will open. I know that too.
Well, you know what? I think testing, is something that at the moment we don't seem to be... I mean, we know we haven't got a grip on it nationally for a long time. Finally, we seem to be. But I think you're right. I think we may have to live with perhaps testing ourselves, saying we're virus-free before we do activities. We were talking about that earlier when talking about going to the gym. Maybe that is something where we sign a form and say, yes, we're virus-free, so we can attend. Maybe, Amanda, Barrie, there is a sort of, we live alongside the virus, and we just, at some stage, we do have to start doing activities. Again, that may carry a little bit of risk, but the risk of people's jobs going, of certain industries going under, becomes more desperate in a way.
Well, it was the first time the other day that I actually, the whole thing, everything is terrible, everything is awful. And I suddenly thought about the theatre and about this entire profession sort of almost being obliterated. And particularly all the kids. I mean, I was thinking about all the people who might have just got into the Royal Ballet, all the people who got their first television series, and then all the people who managed to get along because they're going to do pantomime. But then you suddenly hear for the first time in your life, there's no pantomime. And it suddenly dawned on you, all those empty theatres everywhere, how on earth is anybody ever going to get them back and up and running?
Talk to us about the issue of pantomime, because, we think of pantomime as something a little bit silly, a little bit frivolous, and something that's around Christmas.
But
the point... Oh, no, it isn't. Oh, yes, it is. But thoroughly enjoyable. But also, importantly, a money spinner, isn't it, for theatres? Because if they can't put panto on, they very often can't fund other activities as well.
No, I mean, the pantomimes are the thing that keep that theatre, whichever way, going for the rest of the year. And if they don't have that, I mean, people don't realise how much it costs to keep a theatre going. And I'm sure the big theatres, I'm sure the big boys in the theatre are looking after all the big theatres. What worries me is there are about 700 little theatres that may well just fall between the cracks, and all the people that they employ. And because it's sort of such a soundingly frothy little profession, and we're worrying about everybody else, all those dancers, singers, people who work backstage, music, everybody. I mean... It's
terrible. I want to bring in Konstantin here. But you're a comedian. You've got an interesting take on this. You don't think that theatre work should be prioritised over more important things. Why?
Well, what I'm saying, Piers, is if you look at any industry, you could run a segment every day for the rest of the year, and there would be another industry, travel agents, comedy clubs, cinemas, whatever, restaurants, pubs. You could find endless list of industries that are very important to our national fabric that we're not going to be able to afford to save them all. I think, people need to realize we borrowed 10 times as much money in May as we did in last May. Our national debt is now bigger than our GDP. Eventually, we're going to have to pay for all this. So I'm not sure, you were talking about student nurses earlier in the program. I'm just not sure that people are going to, if you poll the British public, I don't think that saving out comedy clubs or bailing out comedy clubs and theatres and other entertainment venues is going to be on the priority list.
I think you make a very valid point, and I wouldn't disagree with anything you've just said in terms of priorities and the rest of it. But the reality is, we've been locked down now for months and months. People want escapism, they want light relief, they want to go to the theatre, they want to go and have a laugh at a comedy club. And the idea, I think, for many people that a lot of those theatres and comedy clubs may simply never open again, I think that's an incredibly sad thing.
Oh,
so,
it's tragic.
Although you can't compare it, obviously,
industry.
to a student nurse's, situation, it's still important to people.
Oh, completely. I completely agree. And of course, I agree with both Nigel and Amanda. And I don't think anyone could fail to have any empathy with theatre staff, performers, comedians, frankly, all of us. But the truth is that is the choice that we're going to have to make as a country. Do we, bail out theatres, or do we help student nurses? That is going to be the choice.
How is your... you personally, have you been able to do any work in the last 4 months or so?
Well, all of us are having to adapt. So most comedians are now doing things online. I have my own YouTube show where we do a live stream every night. And that's kind of, all of us are having to adapt to the new reality.
Can you make money from that kind of thing?
You can do, yeah. But I mean, it's not like comedians make a lot of money most of the time anyway. So for some of us, it's been quite a benefit. But for a lot of people, of course, it is a struggle. And as Nigel says, as long as the government requires people to socially distance when they are in public, particularly indoors, the truth is that most of these venues run on such tiny margins normally anyway, that until that requirement is lifted, until we can pack in people into a tiny room or a big room close together, these venues aren't going to come back. They just don't make enough money.
Nigel Havers, I mean, the going online, watching live streamed theatre, I mean, these are alternative ways of enjoying entertainment. Cameron Mackintosh, of course, has said he's taken the heartbreaking decision to delay the return of Les Mis, Mary Poppins, Phantom of the Opera and Hamilton. But we know, for instance, that Hamilton is going to be broadcast on the 3rd of July. I think it's on Disney Plus it's going to be on. We're watching pictures from the London Hamilton now. I mean, do we have to accept that actually we're going to have to just consume our entertainment on TV from now on?
No. And anyway, the experience you get from recording a theatre show is, in my opinion, not as good in any shape or form. No, first of all, it will come back. That is a fact. Of course it will. This virus will disappear at some stage, and we'll be allowed to go again. But I'm going to try this summer. I'm going to try and do a production outside. I'm trying. Today I'm going to a meeting to see if we can do a play in the open air. So this summer, how about that?
Well,
that would be good. And also,
Regent's Park Theatre is an open-air theatre.
I think that is a natural thing for people during this summer if the weather's good. Also, I mean, Dizzy Rascal coming on later. There's something to do drive-through concerts.
Gigs,
you drive in like you would a drive-in cinema. I mean, it may be the theatre world will have to consider whether they can put on drive-in theatre productions.
Sure. We've got to be inventive, we really have at the moment, because otherwise we're just sitting on our backsides, not doing very much. And it really isn't anybody's fault. I understand that you can't squeeze a lot of people in because they're frightened of, the spreading of the virus. And if you are close, that's going to happen.